Hey everybody, it's Presco Kino. So this week, Chapter 5, magazines, my favorite, or one of my favorite mass communication media. Certainly very versatile, targeted, unique, offshoot of the newspaper industry. Magazine actually means storehouse. So, back in the day, magazines were places where they stored things like ammunition, but the idea of a kind of clearinghouse for lots of different information and articles that, were like-minded, pictures and things like that. The idea of a magazine, kind of, everything about, some a certain kind of interest is a great way to kind of think about how a magazine comes together. Magazines in the British 1700s were aimed at the elite, and they were a little bit more expensive, kind of highbrow literacy kind of magazines. In the colonial era here in the Americas, there were two publishers, Andrew Bradford and Benjamin Franklin, who tried to duplicate that feel in the colonial location. And Andrew Bradford beat Ben Franklin by just a couple of days, publishing his first magazine. So again, they were aimed at the illiterate, urban, and affluent readers. A lot of them had revolutionary kind of arguments to them. So Thomas Paine, the famous Common Sense, argued for the separation of the colonies from England. And as magazines, grew in popularity, we have lots of different kind of publications. Some famous ones here: Saturday Evening Post, Harper's, Atlantic Monthly, still around today. Life magazine, the idea of the picture magazine, better technology in printing, The Postal Act of 1879 allowed for cheaper rates for magazines. The railroads let magazines spread their circulation, and inexpensive prices also made magazines available to the general public. So we have the mass circulation era here between 1900 and 1945. Magazines were really growing in popularity. President Roosevelt dubbed this term muckrakers, and they were some publishers, authors at McClure magazine who kind of looked at corporate power and politics and government corruption and tried to expose that. They were kind of raking the muck, right? In a lot of ways, magazines were similar to the newspaper industry as a kind of watchdog. In this era. This idea of specialization too. I found this fun magazine called Donkey Talk, and the idea that there's a magazine for everybody. After World War II, we had this idea that people had more money, people had more free time. They were a little bit more kind of leisure oriented, lifestyle oriented, so that magazines could really become a kind of fragmented, where they could still make money even with a small audience because it was so targeted. In other words, you could sell these donkey owners, donkey food or donkey harnesses or whatever. So you'd really have a very targeted kind of audience, and it was effective on your return on investment to actually. Contemporary magazines, they have their issues. There are, lots of competition from the internet and cable. The idea of what's the latest topic that you can find, the conglomeration still is going on, just like other industries where a few major corporations own most of the magazines. However, the popularity continues to grow, and everybody is exposed to magazines, whether you're a subscriber or you just pick up a magazine in a newspaper stand that you're interested in. Maybe you're taking a trip or something, you want something to read that's light reading, fun reading, and also something that's really focused. Too. So these kind of niche audiences, the idea of again aiming magazines at different kind of demographic, psychographic, ethnographic groups, really is an effective way to target the circulation of magazines. Again, this just talks about the way that magazines have been growing. In 1950, there were 7,000 magazines. That number is beyond 20,000 today. So lots of new magazines that are really catering to different groups. So magazines can be divided into different kind of categories, whether they're trade, professional, business magazines, industrial company magazines, or the general consumer magazines. And lots of examples here, right? So you guys can look at this in the book. I'm not going to go through every single one of them, but the idea of different types of magazines. Here's the famous Blush magazine here, published at FIT. It's kind of easy to get into the magazine industry today. You can self-publish electronically. And again, lots of different categories of consumer magazines. And the idea of this 360. So you've got the paper magazine. One of the nice things about magazines too is that they are printed on this coated stock. So unlike a newspaper, a magazine feels nice. It holds up really well. You can kind of put it on the coffee table and keep it around. And then the printing is just way better. The resolution is so much better that you can achieve than a newspaper. So the quality of imagery in a magazine is a lot better. But the idea of this 360, where now you have the online version of the magazine, there's many more readers are available. Some people may just read the online one. Other people magazines. In advertising, our area, right? So magazines again can be so targeted that they can really be effective. So you have things like Gray Magazine, AARP. I just got my notice to join, and I was pretty upset. But magazines that are geared for people over 60 years old, 60 degrees. The Long Island Post. So demographically or geographically kind of located magazines. So you can see so many different magazines just in the New York City area that might be the Chelsea Evening Penny Saver or something like that. So can really target. Another way to target and be really effective is something called a split run. So a split run is, here are some of the top advertisers in magazines. Makeup and cosmetics obviously is number one, but food is close behind. So lots of revenue and lots of spending and ad spending in magazines. Magazine readership is measured by circulation, and the more circulation there is, the more a magazine can charge for space in the magazine. So how do they measure that? Obviously, circulation is the number of issues that are sold, but circulation and readership can be two different things, because you have also this idea that I buy a magazine, but I bring it home and 5 people in my household read it. So this is called pass-along readership. And then there are magalogs. So this example here, the images are magalogs. And what they are really are catalogs. They're total advertisements, but they look like. Okay, the ABC, the Audit Bureau of Circulations, is a organization that provides numbers for circulation figures, and they recently changed their name to the Alliance of Audited Media. So again, circulation data is augmented by pass-along readership and other 360 data like online readership. And where's the industry going? So you have magazines today who are involved in web design and video production for their content. So there's a social media presence. They're kind of sending out their tendrils into different areas of mass communication. Here's an interesting thing: the idea that you can have a magazine. I remember I was excited when I would find a magazine that had a blow-in card. So a blow-in card is this thing that as they're printing it, they blow in a little postcard that you can then use to get a special deal or whatever. And then a lot of magazines would have these little perfume things in there, right? So very expensive kind of printing, where they're actually printing a scratch and sniff kind of perfume thing instead of the ink. I always found that kind of actually nauseating, but QR codes, right? So you can scan something in the magazine with your phone, and it'll take you to different, websites, and same thing with. And here are some more of the kind of trends in publishing. The idea of a globalization, artificial intelligence being involved. Paid memberships, magazines really licensing their reputation, producing their own satellite media. Where advertisers kind of, again, just like in newspapers, where you are, top of the fold, so back cover, front inside cover, those are obviously the critical places to be. A lot of people read the first few pages, and then they may leave the magazine behind. So ads that are, in the front of the magazine cost more than ads that are in the back of the magazine. And then this idea of how social media, really kind of plays in to marketing. So, um, magazines can again be targeted, and they have established communities. The whole experience can be enhanced by looking at the social media website. The magazine is designed to drive traffic to other places where you can, then get different points of view. And some of the other digital advantages, obviously, over print. You have audiovisual capability, right? So the magazine becomes a kind of full experience, and it has video and audio, and it can also be customized to different readers. It's easily updated, right? So once we print the magazine, it's kind of written in stone. But the electronic version, if there's new data and things happening, they can easily be updated as it happens, kind of. So the idea of it's kind of really staying very fresh and new is an important thing to a lot of readers. So I'll leave you with this thought of your own kind of critical thinking about magazines and recognizing the power of its graphic kind of influence, and how the quality of a magazine image can really purport a certain feel and message. And with the advent of things like Photoshop to retouch, how ethical is that? For instance, you take a look at this, here's the original images, and then you look at how they are manipulated to, change the feel of body image and all kinds of, messaging going on here, and how ethical that is. So that might be something to think about critically, and also to think about, for possibly a final project presentation. Remember, you're thinking about a final project that is going to be something related to one of the chapters in the course. So this could be a very interesting one to kind of analyze. Enjoy the reading, and let me know if you have any questions at all.